I've got a floppy linkage on my Defender Wolf, so this linkage, high-low range linkage, was very floppy. It's now much better. So this nut was very loose, and there was a lot of play in this, which meant the lever was very floppy. So it does seem better now. It also wasn't going into diff lock, so the lever was moving across, but it wasn't actually locking the diff, so it kind of wasn't clicking in place. So that now feels much better. Now I've tightened up this nut down here. There's not much play in it now. But I've also got underneath, had to go at trying to sort out the diff lock linkage, which I cleared out a lot of crud from, and tightening this nut, I now seem to think it does click over. So tightening up this nut, this part of the linkage, didn't work, and what I found was this lever here couldn't move this far enough across to click it into place in a diff lock. Unfortunately, that means that my simple fix that I hoped for didn't work, and as you can see now, I've had to get at another part of the linkage, so that's quite annoying. It's been quite a lot more work. First things, I had to, these Wolves, they come with this acoustic matting. It's really thick and heavy. This goes all across the transmission tunnel, the gearbox tunnel here, and into both footwells, etc. I've taken it out over here, and it's actually really heavy, not very flexible, although it actually looks it there, but getting this out under the handbrake and the foot pedals is a bit of a nightmare. And then you can see this is the cover to the gearbox transmission tunnel. So this unscrewed. So obviously I had to take all the knobs off the levers to get first the matting and then this gearbox tunnel cover. So you can see this just screws in on all these holes here, some of which were obviously and expectedly quite rusty all round, and the other side there. Obviously had to take the cover off the fuse and relay box here to be able to get the matting off as well. I can't get these footwell screws out, unfortunately. A little bit of rust here, which I'll treat whilst I've got everything off, and I'll try and replace these rusty screws which I can't get out whilst I'm in here. But back to the point. So, and you can see it pivots on this part here, and how far out this pivot is dictates how far out this lever moves at the bottom, and therefore whether it will click into place. And so what I actually had to do is to adjust this part by screwing this out to give it more movement, this pivot further out. And so I'll just show you what I did quickly there. What you can do is you can just slide this clip off, and then there's a bush either side here, so this comes out like this. Make sure you don't drop it, as I did, and then you can disassemble this, take this off, and you can see here this, it need a bit of play in here, which is a pain. So what I did was to loosen this nut again to give it enough play to get this off, and then you can see that this screws either in or out to give this is the pivot, and then this to give this lever more movement. So that's what I've done. Just put this back together again. So after adjusting that pivot point, you can see the levers over here in the diff not locked. I was happy then that moving this across, this is now fully clicked into place and should be engaging the diff lock. So I went out then and had a test drive. The diff lock light did not come on, so I'm by this time pretty frustrated, having spent quite a lot of time doing this. Be absolutely sure that when I move the lever across, it is actually locking the diff. And so what I'm going to do is jack up the front wheel and try turning it with the diff lock unlocked and locked, and see if it is locking the diff, and then I know for sure. So that's the next stage. So you can see I'm just jacking up under the front of the chassis here. Obviously handbrake on, so it doesn't roll anywhere. Right, so we only need this up enough for the wheel to be, front wheel to be able to turn. So just checking, the diff is not locked, so that means this front wheel should just spin freely. Okay, well that's a good start, as expected. So I've just locked the diff, and now I'll try turning that front wheel again. And if the diff is locking, this front wheel shouldn't be able to turn because the back wheels can't turn themselves. They're planted on the ground, and I'm not able to turn it past there and past there. So that's locked. There you go. I'm confident now that the diff lock is actually working. The mechanism, yeah, and all the linkage must be okay. So I guess it points at either potentially an electrical problem or perhaps with the sensor. So I think I'm going to look at the sensor first and see if that's working, perhaps change that, and if not, it's, I guess, electrical. Well, anyway, I'm pleased that the diff lock is actually working mechanically, so that's great. I recently did a walk around video of this Wolf, and one thing I forgot to include was actually quite a cool feature I like on these ex-military vehicles. We have this panel that flaps up, so when you're in the field at night time particularly, this covers up the warning lights. When you put this up, it blocks them off, so you don't emit any light except for the key ones like the diff lock, for example, oil, etc. So that's a really cool feature. But now we are going to take this off and see if the bulb works or not. So actually I've seen that this is only held on by a couple of screws, so I'll need to fix this when I put it back together again. One screw down here, down here. Okay, so I'll take this off now. It's very difficult to film, but these here are the bulbs. They just do a twist through 90 degrees and pull out. So what I've done is I've just checked that they're working for the main beam, for example, and I'm just going to swap these bulbs over, one that I know is working, and stick it in the diff lock hole, which is looking at the front, this one here. So I'll swap that over and test it again. Okay, that was very difficult to film, so I had to give up filming, but you just twist those bulbs out. I replaced one with one that I knew was working, and then also with a new one that I'd got, and still no joy, diff lock light not coming on. So next, the final attempt, which is getting a new switch in. So I am going to take out this diff lock switch. You see I've just started loosening it, and then whilst this is out, I'll clean up the connectors. Everything is pretty gunky, to say the least here. I'll clean up the switch, see what that looked like, but I've got a new one anyway, so I'm going to replace it. This out, I can wind it out with my finger now. So I've just cleaned it up. It was absolutely horrible, caked in kind of oily dirt, as you might expect being under where it is. So I think these work just as you move into diff lock, kind of lever comes across and depresses that, which obviously triggers the switch and the lights. Hopefully you can see here then I've got the new switch screwed in and the cables back on. So we shall now give this a go. I'm not entirely sure if I've screwed that down the right amount. I think you're meant to screw it in till the diff lock light comes on and then screw it a half turn further. My light hasn't come on, so I still don't think this is the solution, unfortunately, but I'm going to go and give this a go and just check it out. So I have a feeling this might be something to do with electrics, actually, but we'll see. Right, so this is, I think, check number 3 to see if this is working now, and really this is the final straw. So you can still see I haven't replaced put the dash back on properly, just in case after testing the lights this bit's come out. I'll stick that back in when I put it back all together. And we're still kind of all apart here. So this is really, as I say, the last test. I thought I'd fixed the linkage. I've checked the bulbs. So now this is checking after replacing the switch down here. And if this doesn't work, I'm guessing it's a wiring issue or something, and I will probably end up taking it to my local garage where there's a guy who knows Defenders very well, having rebuilt a couple himself of his own. So here we go. I might need to drive this, as sometimes I find it takes a couple of revolutions of the wheels for the diff lock light to come on anyway, so we'll give this a go. So we're in unlocked, now we'll move it across to lock. No light. So let's just try. There we go. Awesome. So you can see I just moved just a tiny bit and it's come on. Brilliant. So then I'll just move the diff lock back to unlocked. So lights stay. It's gone out. Brilliant. So I am extremely happy to have this working now. It seems like it's working okay. It must have been the switch all along, I think. It's now, the diff's definitely locking and the light is coming on and off as it should when it's locked and unlocked. Everything seems to be working well. As I say, extremely happy because I'm meant to be going on a kind of off-roading trip with a friend in a few weeks, and I really wanted to get this sorted. I didn't really want to go off-road and not knowing if the diff lock was properly working. So that's awesome. Now to get it all back together again, I guess. And one last thought, when I drove this out last time, I was testing it down just a byway, a small track, and it rides really nicely on the road, but I find on the big bumps off-road, there's a big thump sometimes on the big bumps coming from the rear. So something in the rear suspension needs looking at, and I think that might well be my next job as well before the off-road trip. Brilliant. So you'll leave me on a happy note. Thanks for watching.